Well, what is going on YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. It is very nice to have you here today. I have got something very cool on the table today. This came to us by way of Napster Ninja. Thank you very much. This is a knife I had never even heard of until a little while ago. But you guys know I've got a thing for old Benchmades. I really do. And this is a particularly interesting one for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, what are we looking at? This is the Benchmade 111 or 111. This is part of their H2O series. It's a dive knife, I guess. It's N680 blade steel, steel liners, steel clip, G10, or excuse me, Grivory. I know what I'm doing. Watch me go. I love this blade shape, right? This sort of no point for, traditionally sailing knives don't have, sailing and dive knives don't have a point on them because you don't want to stab your tank, stab your boat, stab yourself, but it's got a nice long cutting edge and a ton of belly. This is a really cool design. The Grivory is done in such a way as to give you lots of grip if you're wearing gloves, I assume. It's just an excellent knife, and of course it's discontinued, which is a bit of a bummer. I guess that what happened is that Napster got a hold of one of these that was serrated, and a lot of dive knives are serrated. That's kind of a thing. He went ahead and found the original non-serrated blade and put it in, and so I'm going to put this out there right now. If you guys have one of these in that neon yellow and you're looking to move it, let me know, because Napster is really looking for one of the neon yellow versions, and these are kind of hard to come by. So while this isn't exactly the one he wanted, and he was nice enough to let me add it to my collection, if I could find him one of the green yellow ones, that would be very, very cool. All right, well, let's take a look at what you get. The first thing I want to point out is this handle shape. It looks familiar, or it might if you're a Benchmade nut like I am. And that's because we've seen it before. It is the exact same profile as the classic Rift. And that is very cool. I don't know if you could do a blade swap, but it looks possible. They look to be the same thickness, and that is very interesting to me, but we'll get around to that later. But so this particular handle has been sort of polarizing. For a lot of people, because of the shape, it's not particularly comfortable. I guess that's what I've been told. But for me, if you look at the way that fits my hand, this is one of the most comfortable knife handles ever made. So getting another knife in different materials, of course, and in a different sort of layout, but with this same profile, is really cool. I love the Rift, but I love the 111 even more, and it's called the Bullhead because I think of the shape of the blade. That's a silly name, and we're going to ignore it. The Benchmade 111 is, well, like I said, it's one of their dive knives. Now, how diving, I don't know. Apparently, it's 420. The liners are 420. Which are stainless. The blade, as I said, is N680, which is stainless and fairly good at repelling things like salt water. Now, this is old. This knife has been around for about 8 or 9 years at this point. And dive technology has come a long way. You know, there's stuff like Teravantium out there. There's just a lot of really good saltwater resistant steels that are being used in knives now. But for its time, this was very cool. And it's a little bit like an alternate, think of it as it's an alternate timeline variant of the Rift. And that makes me super happy. So let's take a look at what you get overall. Now you've seen it up against we're going to call it long lost brother, the Rift here, right? They are very similar. The blade's a little longer than the Rift blade, but let's do it against some other knives you may be more familiar with, and then we'll get the rest of the specs out of the way. Here it is against a PM2. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the Tanto PM2. We'll get to that later. Here it is. Here it is against a more traditional PM2. We're going to go ahead and line that up right there on that line. And as you can see, these knives are very similar in length. Of course, you get a little more cutting on the 111. Here it is against the pair of 3. Again, right. 111 is considerably larger. And for all of you who have a couple of Spydercos, let's do a Benchmade. Here's, of course, the bug out. Oop. There you go. As you can see, the 111 is a full-size knife, and it is very comfortable. And again, this blade is so slicey. It makes me really happy. Let's get the basic specs out of the way. You are looking at 3.5 inches of cutting on just about 3 3/4 inches of N680 blade steel. If I, throughout this video, accidentally call it N690, it's because that's a much more common blade steel and it's in my head. So I'll try not to do that, but I've caught myself a couple of times. The grip area from behind that swell, 1, 2, 3, right at 4 inches, right? Plenty of room on the handle here to move around. It is very nice. The knife overall, from tip to tail, looking at about 8 1/4. Closed length, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little over 4.5. And of course, the pocket profile, because it's axis lock and there's no flipper, is pretty nice, but it does have a really tall blade. We are looking at just at 1.5 inches. Not bad. Not bad at all. The action, of course, is Benchmade good, running on the axis lock. It does have a... Oh, I did cut my finger. And you guys are going to see this in a few videos coming up because I'm going to make a string of videos in a row, and now you'll know. I will be replacing this with a nice tie clip at some point. It's just kind of what I do. Also, I'll go a little deeper carry. The nice thing, of course, is that with this being the rift handle, essentially, is that any clip that will fit the rift will also fit the 111. It's a little heavier than my rift, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. This is an excellent knife. And one of the things that sort of trips me out is, so the rift was a successful knife, but I always think it could have been more. And lately I've been talking about, I wish they'd bring this back, update the steel a little bit, right? We can move away from 154 cm. I mean, that's its generation at Benchmade. Now, mind you, this one does have carbon fiber scales that I've added, but other than that, it's the stock rift. I really wish they'd bring this back, but now I find myself wishing that they would bring these both back. Do this one in a more advanced, like diver steel, you know, something like, there's a ton of options, but even like Teravantium would be very cool. Do this one in, you know, LC200N liners like they do on the quiet carries. Do this just a little better, and I think they would sell the crap out of these. For some people that just want a straight pocket knife, this knife done in better materials would offer them a more sort of traditional blade shape. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's an amazing knife, and I really hope, well, it's a fantasy, that they would bring such a thing back. But in the meantime, I'm very happy to have one in the collection. I mentioned it feels a little bit heavier than the Rift. Let's go ahead and weigh it out and see where we land. Oh, for whatever it's worth, when Blade HQ stopped selling these, which was a while ago now, their final price was about $115. I think they were about $140 when they were new. The ones that I've seen online over on eBay are going for about $140, $150. You can find them if you're interested. Let's see what else we have going on. The weight, dead on 5 ounces. And I am curious now. Now that, mind you, this does have aftermarket scale, so I'm not sure it's 100% fair. But yeah, like I said, it feels a little heavier. And while I can't be 100% sure, it feels like the liners might be just a hair thicker. But other than that, I think the specs are almost the same. That just trips me out. I mean, all this time I've been sort of running on about how this is one of my favorite handle shapes, and I really wish there were more knives like this. And here it is. I just think that's cool. Let's get the other specs out of the way, shall we? They have given you 2.9 millimeters of that N680 blade steel. The handle is, down here at its thickest, 14.92 millimeters, which is a little over half an inch. Not bad. Like I said, at its tallest closed, you're talking about almost an inch, 1.48 inches, right? So we're right at 1.5 inches this way. That's what it's going to eat up in the pocket. So again, this is the Benchmade, oddly named Bullhead, part of their 420 series. This is the 111. I am really into this knife, and I'm really glad to have one in the collection. I'm going to ask again, if you guys out there have the green-yellow version of this and you're looking to move it along, let me know down in the comments or hit me up over on Instagram. You'd be doing me a real favor. So let's go ahead and leave it at that. This has been the Benchmade 111 Bullhead, a new addition to my Benchmade collection, and a knife that I wish they still made. I think it'd be very cool. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time. Take care.